The first thing anyone noticed was the little girl running into the middle of a crowded sidewalk, not to beg, not to ask for money, but to stop a stranger from collapsing face first onto the concrete. While dozens of people looked away, assuming the ragged man was simply another homeless drifter, one exhausted single mother rushed forward with her daughter, knelt beside him without hesitation, and gave away the only lunch they had. Neither of them knew the man lying on the pavement owned a fortune so vast that entire city blocks carried his signature. What happened after that simple act of kindness would forever change 3 lives and remind everyone that the richest hearts are often found in the poorest homes. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still matter in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel to help our community continue sharing uplifting stories. Graham Whitmore had spent decades building one of the country's largest construction companies. His face appeared on business magazines, his speeches inspired entrepreneurs, and politicians sought his advice. Yet despite all the praise, he felt strangely invisible. Every board meeting sounded the same. Every report praised impressive profits while quietly ignoring growing complaints from ordinary customers, struggling employees, and neighborhoods affected by his company's decisions. Whenever he questioned executives, they insisted everything was perfect. Every survey looked excellent. Every inspection received glowing reviews. Graham no longer believed the polished presentations sitting on his conference table. He wanted the truth, not the version carefully prepared for a billionaire. Without informing anyone except his longtime attorney, Graham shaved his familiar beard, wore worn-out clothes from a thrift shop, carried an old backpack, and left his expensive watch locked away. He wanted to spend several days living like someone nobody respected. He walked through districts where his company owned apartment complexes, visited grocery stores his employees recommended, and stood in lines where ordinary people waited. The experience shocked him almost immediately. Doors that once opened automatically remained closed. Clerks ignored him. Security guards followed him through stores. People who once smiled at wealthy customers barely acknowledged his existence. By the third afternoon, exhaustion had replaced curiosity. The summer heat felt unbearable. Graham had skipped breakfast after spending hours walking through neighborhoods where he observed landlords raising rents while ignoring broken staircases and leaking roofs. He had listened to elderly tenants describe impossible choices between medicine and groceries. Each story weighed heavily on him until dizziness overtook him. Near a busy supermarket entrance, his vision blurred, his knees weakened, and he collapsed. Most pedestrians simply stepped around him. Some frowned with annoyance, others whispered that another homeless man had probably been drinking. No one stopped, except for 2 people who owned almost nothing. Marjorie Ellison had never imagined life would become so difficult. After her husband passed away from a sudden illness 3 years earlier, every day became a careful calculation of rent, food, electricity, and school expenses. She worked mornings cleaning offices and afternoons stocking shelves at a neighborhood pharmacy. Even with 2 jobs, unexpected bills constantly threatened to push her family onto the streets. Yet despite constant hardship, she refused to let bitterness define her. Her greatest treasure was her 9-year-old daughter, Hazel, whose gentle heart somehow remained untouched by poverty. Hazel spotted the fallen man before her mother did. Without fear or hesitation, she tugged Marjorie's sleeve until they hurried toward him. Their grocery bag contained little more than bread, fruit, peanut butter, and milk purchased with carefully saved coupons. It represented almost an entire week's food budget. Marjorie knelt beside the stranger, checked his breathing, and offered him her unopened bottle of water. Hazel quietly placed their sandwich beside him in case he woke hungry. When Graham slowly regained consciousness, he found himself staring into worried faces rather than judgmental ones. Marjorie helped him sit against a nearby wall while other shoppers continued passing by. She noticed how embarrassed he looked. Instead of asking uncomfortable questions, she simply smiled with quiet compassion. She gently encouraged him to eat the sandwich while Hazel peeled a banana and placed it into his trembling hands. Neither mother nor daughter asked for anything in return. They simply believed helping another human being mattered. Graham could barely swallow, not because of hunger but because emotion tightened his throat. He had spent years surrounded by people who expected favors, contracts, promotions, or donations. These strangers expected absolutely nothing. After regaining enough strength to stand, Graham thanked them sincerely. Marjorie brushed aside his gratitude, explaining that anyone deserved help on a difficult day. She apologized that they could not offer more because money had been especially tight that month. Those words stayed with Graham long after they disappeared into the afternoon crowd. Instead of returning home, he quietly followed from a respectful distance that he watched Marjorie walk Hazel to the small apartment building where they lived. Paint peeled from the walls. Several windows were cracked. The entrance railing wobbled dangerously. Graham immediately recognized the property. His own company managed it. His stomach sank. Inside the building, he observed elderly tenants carrying groceries upstairs because the elevator had been broken for weeks. Children avoided puddles forming beneath leaking pipes. Residents discussed maintenance requests that had gone unanswered for months despite steadily increasing rent. Everything executives claimed had been repaired remained neglected. That evening, Graham finally returned to his mansion, removed the disguise, and spent the entire night reviewing reports with growing disbelief. Photographs from inspectors showed spotless hallways while his own phone contained images of mold, damaged ceilings, and broken stair rails taken only hours earlier. Someone had been lying to him for years. The following morning, Graham arrived unexpectedly at company headquarters. Executives greeted him confidently until he projected dozens of photographs onto the conference room screen. Silence filled the room. One by one, senior managers struggled to explain obvious neglect. Several admitted they outsourced inspections without proper oversight. Others confessed maintenance budgets had quietly been reduced to maximize quarterly profits. Graham listened without raising his voice. His disappointment hurt far more than anger. By sunset, multiple executives had been dismissed. Emergency repair teams were dispatched across the city, and independent auditors began reviewing every property under company management. Yet one unfinished matter remained closest to Graham's heart: finding the mother and daughter. He refused to reward them publicly without understanding what they truly needed. Several days later, dressed normally but without revealing his identity immediately, Graham visited the pharmacy where Marjorie stocked shelves. He waited patiently in line and watched her treat every customer with remarkable kindness despite obvious fatigue. She remembered elderly shoppers by name, helped parents find affordable medicine, and smiled even when rude customers complained. Nothing about her compassion had been performed for attention. It was simply who she was. When her shift ended, Graham introduced himself. Marjorie stared in disbelief as recognition slowly spread across her face. The tired stranger she had fed now stood before her wearing a tailored suit, surrounded by respectful assistants. Embarrassment crossed her face because she worried she had somehow done something wrong. Instead, Graham thanked her once again. He explained why he had been undercover. He told her how her kindness had exposed painful truths about his company. Tears filled Marjorie's eyes as she realized their simple decision to help a stranger had sparked enormous change. Hazel arrived from school moments later and immediately recognized Graham. She smiled exactly as she had on the sidewalk, without caring whether he appeared wealthy or poor. That innocent consistency touched him deeply. Over the following weeks, Graham transformed gratitude into meaningful action. He refused merely to hand over a check. Instead, he met privately with Marjorie to understand her dreams. She admitted she had once hoped to become a licensed nurse but abandoned college after financial hardship. Rather than offering temporary charity, Graham established a scholarship covering her education, childcare assistance, transportation, and living expenses until graduation. Hazel received a long-term educational trust ensuring every opportunity her mother had struggled to provide. Meanwhile, Graham launched an employee kindness initiative throughout his company, rewarding workers not only for productivity but for compassion, honesty, and service to others. Apartment residents saw dramatic improvements as repair crews restored neglected buildings, rents stabilized, and tenant concerns finally received serious attention. Many employees feared the Billionaire's undercover experience would create only punishment. Instead, Graham emphasized accountability paired with redemption. Workers willing to improve received training and support. Those who had ignored suffering out of greed faced consequences. The company gradually rebuilt its reputation through genuine care rather than expensive advertising. Months passed. Marjorie excelled in nursing school despite countless challenges. Hazel proudly told classmates her mother was helping people heal, for the first time in years. Laughter returned naturally to their modest apartment. One sunny afternoon, Graham attended Marjorie's graduation ceremony. He chose a quiet seat near the back, wanting the moment to belong entirely to her. When Marjorie crossed the stage to receive her nursing diploma, she searched the audience until she found Graham smiling with quiet pride. Neither wealth nor charity had created that victory, kindness had. Outside the ceremony, Hazel hugged Graham tightly before running toward her mother. Watching them together, Graham realized something no business award had ever taught him: success measured only by money leaves the soul empty. Success measured by lives changed creates a legacy that cannot be bought. Years later, people often spoke about the billionaire who secretly lived as a poor man and transformed his company after discovering uncomfortable truths. Newspapers praised his leadership. Business schools studied his decisions. Yet Graham always insisted the real heroes were never him. They were an exhausted mother and a compassionate little girl who chose mercy over convenience when everyone else walked away. Before we finish this story, we'd love to hear from you. What lesson touched your heart the most, and have you ever experienced a moment when one small act of kindness changed someone's life? Leave a meaningful comment below and inspire others with your story. As the afternoon sun bathed the city in warm light, Marjorie, Hazel, and Graham stood outside the community health clinic where Marjorie had begun her new career. Patients smiled as they entered, children laughed nearby, and hope quietly filled a place that had once seemed defined by struggle. None of them could have imagined that a single sandwich, one bottle of water, and the courage to care for a stranger would ripple outward to improve thousands of lives. Their story became lasting proof that compassion is never wasted, that dignity belongs to every person regardless of appearance, and that one generous decision can rewrite a future no amount of wealth alone could ever purchase. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May this story remind us all that the greatest investment we can ever make is in kindness, because the smallest act of compassion can become the beginning of someone else's miracle.